So, hi everyone, welcome back after lunch. Yeah, I think we see that more people gathering. The talk today will be about transformation, yeah, and why we think it really is going to kick in a little bit later. Actually, when I was asked to do the talk, I did something everyone now does. I asked ChatGPT what I should talk about, and here are the points. Yeah, ChatGPT came up about what's the use of AI, why does AI-powered predict analytics help. But I thought it's probably too boring. Yeah, let's talk about something else which aligns very well with it, and it's a little bit why do we need data and AI to really drive this transformation. First of all, I think we have to understand why this is a transformation. And if you look at all the transformations before, mechanization, industrialization, automation, we see they were always about breaking a world formula. And the world formula we want to break today is more wealth means more natural resource use. And it's an interesting one, because if you look at the others, like digital, available, brain power, defined scalability, the first time ever, it's not driven by a new innovation. The first time ever, this transformation is kicked off because we decided as humanity that we want to break this rule. And it means we need to have all the other innovation we had before to help us. In the end, there are two schools out there which I think are pretty interesting. School number one is Bill Gates. So Bill Gates says people won't stop eating toast, which you can translate in we will not be able to redefine what wealth means. And that's why we have to innovate ourselves out of this. Yeah, with all the good stuff like AI, data, ChatGPT, I put it on again, nuclear fusion or other things. And then you got the other school, which is Ellen MacArthur, who says, no, it's unrealistic we innovate ourselves out of it, but we have to redefine the way we do our demand. Yeah, so we have to reuse, recycle, loop things. Probably it's a combination of both. Interesting enough, if this is a transformation and it's similar to the digital one, at the moment we feel a little bit stuck into it. And I think it's two reasons. One is Eisenhower, some might know this matrix. Everyone gets it, it's super important, but it fights with urgency. Yeah, so you have energy crisis, inflation. I mean, there's a lot of stuff which hits companies, so they kind of step back and say there's more urgent stuff. And the other one, which I think is interesting too, is if you look at the change model, so when people try to change, you need a vision, you need incentives, you need resources, so you need all kind of stuff. And also there we ran into a problem, for example, the vision to meet 1.5 degrees. I mean, it's somehow people think, can we really reach it? So that's bad for movement. In both cases, and that's why I'm making the point, I think the right data or the right way in communicating data can help to prove urgency or to make this movement happen. But it's not only in corporates, and that's, I think, interesting for everyone. It's also in the consumer space. So if you look at yourself and you look at the Maslow pyramid, yeah, sustainability kind of sits on top of it, which means as soon as something else is not so well anymore, people step down. I'm from Germany, as you might hear from my accent. So there are some of the very established brands that do vegan products almost went bankrupt. Yeah, because people said, wait, I first have to heat my flat. I first have to make sure I still have enough money for other things. So again, a problem of urgency. Now we could argue and say, okay, it's no problem in the end because it will get urgent again, so let's wait. But I think we can't wait. Because if you think transformation, you need transformational goods. So you need capital goods, for example, to produce hydrogen. You need green supplies, yeah, to run your supply chain. You need finance, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, and you need skilled people. All of this is scarce, which means if you're a company and you're not going on this path, it might happen that you don't get the resources you need. And this could be especially severe because of finance. And I show you a little picture we've painted up with some finance guys, where we've been asking, guys, if we understand the Green Deal correctly, yeah, that is driving Europe, the idea was that we give you transparency and then you shift all your money towards green businesses. And they said, yes, exactly, that's the plan. And then we asked, okay, why is it not happening? I mean, what's the problem? And here are the 4 hurdles, and they are really, the 4 hurdles, it's really interesting. Number 1, they say we don't have the data. I mean, it's a crazy answer. In our world, they say we don't have the data we need to really assess the companies. Then they said, number 2, the data quality is rubbish. Yeah, because it comes out of surveys, we do some web crawling, but I mean, it's not real good data. Then they said, we're collecting it in very different standards. Yeah, so if you look at rating systems, they diverge a lot. And then they said, and in the end, you know why? Not all the capital is committed. I think it's interesting, and that's why I put it also in the header of my talk. Probably 2026, 2027, those problems will be solved. There will be tons of data because we now have all these reporting asks. Yeah, so almost every company in Europe will produce a lot of data about ESG. Number 2, data quality will be super because we got the auditors that look at it like on financial data. We see a consolidation of standards, so this diversion will be gone. And last but not least, and if you look in the press, bigger and bigger amounts of money are really invested by ESG criteria, which means like we will come to a tipping point. Many of you will know this picture. So the question is, after the tipping point, how is it going to develop? So is it going to be linear, or is it then really going to kick in and kick you out of the market? And my thesis is it's probably going to be exponential for 2 reasons. Because exponentially happens when 2 laws come together. One is Moore's law, yeah, which basically says if the cost or the price for something halves every year, you know this because you're digital, then this law kicks in. The other is Metcalfe, which is about networks. So every active member in a network doubles the power of the network. And both things are true for sustainability. The first one here, I've been looking at companies that have their plans signed off by SBTi, which is an organization that says that your plan of decarbonizing is nice. If you look into it, you see, okay, it's only 500, maybe it's now 1,500 companies globally, which sounds like nothing. But when they sign it, they ask all their suppliers to help them decarbonize Scope 3, and that's a classic network effect. And we did some calculations that currently about 40 million of suppliers are already in those supply chains. So if it really trickles down, you get a huge network effect. On the other side, you basically have an indicator for the price of non-compliance. Yeah? And what we see is ETS price, which is doubling every year. So that's why we think if these 2 come together, you will get an exponential development, which means if you don't move now, transformational goods will be gone, everything will happen overnight, you might get out of business pretty fast afterwards. So the big question is, how can you tackle this? So what's the right management behavior? And I've picked it, to be honest, also from some other people. The first one I really like is set goals that sound impossible. Some call it OKR, I mean, there's different names for this. But to really cause a movement now, you have to get out of the comfort zone. Yeah, I'm not sure who's read the book, Net Positive, from Paul Polman, the former Unilever CEO. It's one of his first and major messages. Yeah, move out of the comfort zone to really gain speed, get going, yeah, and reach high. Number 1, compliance probably is the sharpest sword you have. So we have seen a lot of companies, yeah, so where you have a lot of arguments. If you really can say, okay, there's now a reporting rule, there is any other legislation which forces you, that could be very helpful. I know companies are complaining about it, but in the end, it could be very helpful to get things moving early. Yeah, and I know the EU is not doing a very good job on it because they are postponing stuff, but it's really, don't see it as an enemy, see it as almost like a catalyst or accelerator. Then, and that's a big discussion there's carbon tunneling in the world, so we already see a lot of people concentrate too much on climate. On the other hand, because of the change model, we see such a lack in resources that also we would say concentrate on the major things, and climate could be one. And a really first good step is get it into your decision models. Yeah, and you can do this test on your own, like take any investment paper or any investment Excel you see in your company and see if there's a line for climate. Yeah, I guess probably not. So it's smart to get something in because only then you start thinking about it. The next one I really like because it's empiric. So we've been looking at the losers and winners of earlier transformations. And if you do this, you find out it was mostly owner companies or companies that were owner-led, I would say, so like an owner-led company. And what does it mean? It means you think long-term. Yeah? You're not calculating the ROE for the next quarterly report, but you think, okay, what does it mean for the value of my company if I do this? And we see this starting. So we work a lot with private equity. I'm not sure who in the room is familiar with this, and they always have a kind of a base strategy how they make money. So it used to be financial engineering, then it used to be operational improvement, and now we see them starting to think about value creation based on ESG. So what they do is they say, I buy a very dirty company, yeah, I make it green, and then I got one of those winners in 26, 27. And for me, that's a strong sign that also their analysis has shown that if you do transform companies now, this might give you a tremendous value up afterwards and a very good business case. Last but not least, and that is also important to understand, is we have now all this data we're going to dump out to people. Yeah? And it's much more than financial data, which we reported in the past. And I think we need to give guidance, because what you don't want to happen to you is that an analyst picks it up, and interprets it himself or herself. Yeah? So you really want to try to have a story and underline it with data that makes the story meaningful, just to make sure that you really get it across. So if I want to sum it up, I would say, number one, interesting enough, I think transformation doesn't happen because of a lack of data, which is a big opportunity also for everyone in this room. So to go out and think about where those little pieces are that are missing could really mean big business opportunities. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of pieces missing. Yeah, so if you think about the Supply Chain Act, which means like companies get responsible to know what's happening in their supply chain. I mean, think about all the startup points you have to think. Is the tree really there? Is the cotton really sustainable? I mean, a lot of questions probably you can only answer with data. Number two, I think it's now regulation driving this. So you can force people because you say, hey, you have to be compliant, but it's going to be capital. I'm almost convinced, and this is going to be 26, 27, and it's going to be severe. And the big issue for everyone will be, if you then start to move and your ESG performance is bad, capital will be super expensive, or you might not get it. And we all know that's really bad for a transformation because it costs normally a lot of money. Yeah, so that's why it's good to understand now what it costs and to get the money now. Number three is anything you do in data, think from a story perspective. So what is really relevant for you as a company? What are your stakeholders asking? Yeah, because you want us to start concentrate on the stuff that really matters, because in the end, I think it's impossible to cover everything. Yeah, I mean, I have one number I've seen yesterday in an Oxford report. If you take those rating system guys, currently they're tracking 760 different criteria. 760. I mean, you could imagine it's almost impossible to do this. And last but not least, in my opinion, data and AI can help to solve this because they are on this Bill Gates side of the equation. Yeah, so this is innovation we need. On the other hand, I'm also convinced we need a little bit of Ellen MacArthur, yeah, which is more kind of a behavioral change. There, I think data and AI can be helpful, but it's probably not the major enabler there. And with this, I say a big thank you, and I hope you liked it and it gave you some food for thought for your further discussions this afternoon. Thanks so much.